Some people ask me a question about how to get into the world of real estate investing. What are the first steps that you have to do first in order for you to dive into the world of real estate investing? So, in this episode, we're going to talk about um, the steps that you need to know when you going before you dive into the world of real estate investing. So, how do you get into it? The first thing that you have to know first is that you first need to know what type of investors are you. Are you an active investors or are you a passive investors? Because not everyone are designed to do certain things or can do certain things. You have to know what type of vehicle or strategies that you're going to use in order for you to become successful in the world of investing. And there are four things that you need to uh, know, or call it four ways to make money in the world of real estate investing. And that is your appreciation, your force appreciation, your principal recapture, and your cash flow. So let's talk about this, right? Um, Appreciation is when your property appreciates in value. For example, if you bought a property this year for 500,000, and your property appraised next year for 600,000, so your property appreciates in value 100,000 in value. So that's why you call appreciation. Your forced appreciation is when you're forcing the property to have a value. For example, would be buying a dilapidated property that is well below market value, and you're doing a renovation on it, and you turn it around and sell it for a higher value, and therefore you're forcing the property to appreciate its value, right? And your principal recapture is when you're paying the mortgage of your investment property, and your mortgage is shrinking, and in other words, that you're recapturing the initial investment that you put into the property. And cash flow is simply means a cash flow. It's how much money that you make after your expenses, right? So the question is, which type of investors are you, and what type of property are you going to buy? And that would all depends on your current and individual situation. But first, let's understand one thing, right? Just because you attended a seminar or workshop about real estate investing, and you see people um, that are owning one property, two property, 50 a property, 100 doors, um, and doing a different strategies, that doesn't mean that you have to follow them, or that does not mean that what works for them will works for you, because once again, it all depends on your own individual strategies, right? And there are investors who buy and specialize in a different market, in a different areas, and some are going strictly for cash flow, um, and some are okay to park their money on their property to appreciate in value. A good example of this is that if you were to buy a property in the Toronto or in the GTA, don't expect that you're going to see cash flow, because as we all know that the price of real estate in Toronto is very high, right? You're simply buying it for the purpose of appreciation. So is this a right investment? Once again, it all depends on you and what you're going after. Buying a property outside Toronto, for example, 1 hour from Toronto, 3 hours away from Toronto, even sometimes outside the province, may have an advantages, because you may be able to find a property that is much more affordable than Toronto. But the trade-off is that you have to have your own team to manage it, your property management, your contractors, your workers that you can rely on to manage your investment property. In the world of investing, we call it boots on the ground, right? Whereas if you were to buy a more turnkey property in the city, for example, Toronto, in a couple of years, you may reap the reward of the value of its appreciation. It may take a little bit longer, but it's much more safer than if you were to go outside Toronto, especially if you are a beginners, right? So just because you are not hitting the cash flow, it does not mean that it is a bad investment. Uh, just like once again, you have to understand the four ways to make money and what you are really going after, right? Um, you have to also study the market where you're going to invest, and a good indicator would be is that if you can find an untapped market um, where a flow of migration are. And where do you think the next big thing will happen? For example, I study the demographics, right? And that's how you make money in real estate by going there first. So, in summary, you first need to understand what type of investors you are. If you're an active investors or passive investors, if you're an active investors, then you are most likely are capable of taking the risk, right? You may be able to buy an investment property on your own, right? Whereas if you're a passive investors, you may need to do a joint venture with other people who knows how to do it. If you're not yet a seasoned investors, right? Then you have to understand the four different ways to make money, just like what I talked about, which is your appreciation, your force appreciation, your principal recapture, and your cash flow, right? And once you understand those, it will give you a different perspective of where to start.